Hello, I'm J.R.R, and I'm doing a presentation on how Lewis and Tolkien addressed evil. So the prompt was, how do Tolkien and Lewis address evil? And according to them and their experience, what should the response of the individual be? So, the existence of evil is a question humanity has grappled with throughout all of history. After World War I, many disillusioned humanists began to deny that personal responsibility and conscience were necessary in order for people to produce evil. In the disillusioned, hopeless world created by World War I and the aftermath, many people began to respond and side with these theories. However, C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, two of the most prominent Christian authors of that period, did not subscribe to the same theory. Lewis and Tolkien viewed evil as a spiritual force that roamed around the world, seeking to pervert God's original creation by corrupting human hearts. They saw this as constantly at war with the good that God has created, and that humans are part of this war. They believed that humans faced the choice of choosing good and evil. They rejected the growing belief that evil was a result of improper evolution, and that individuals have no responsibility for their actions. They did not hold the view that evil occurred at various points in a string of unrelated events. Instead, they believed it was an overarching force that encompassed all of human history. These authors both believe the descent to evil is a normally slow, gradual process. Very few people with good intentions, overnight, just decide to suddenly become malicious towards everyone else and seek their own evil purposes. Both authors illustrate this point in their books. C.S. Lewis, in his The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, has Edmund, the boy, eat some of the evil, wicked White Witch's Turkish delight, and he eventually becomes addicted to it and keeps going back to her until he becomes serving her. This is a gradual shift into evil. He did not just suddenly decide when he first met her to side with her. Same also rings true for The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Frodo Baggins, the character who has sought all book long to destroy the all-powerful ring, eventually is seduced by its power and becomes enslaved to it. Lewis's take on evil. In Mere Christianity, Lewis says that clearly there is a bad evil present in the universe. He says, quote, "The universe is a battlefield where they fight out an endless war. In fact, what we meant by calling them good and evil means that one of them is good and one of them is bad, and that the good turns out to be in line with God's ultimate reality, and that the bad is working against their own reality." Lewis says that the universe is engaged in a civil war between good and evil, and that we, on Earth, are currently residing in evil's stronghold. However, he says, Christianity is a story of how the rightful king has landed, and is calling us to take part in a campaign of sabotage. When you go to church, you're really listening to secret wireless from our friends. That is why the enemy is so anxious to keep you from going to church. Lewis clearly viewed the existence of evil as a part of a universal war in which humans each have an important individual role to play. Tolkien also talked about evil in many of his letters. In a letter to his son in 1944, he wrote, "Evil labors with a vast power and perpetual success, but in vain, preparing always only the soil for good to sprout in." When talking about his stories, he said, "In my story, I do not deal in absolute evil. I do not think there is such a thing, since that is zero. I do not think that, at any rate, any rational being is wholly evil. Satan fell." He also later says that Satan is what brought evil into the natural world. He's not as explicit in stating that God is the good force in the world, but by reading his works and other letters, this can be easily inferred. So how others should respond. Based on these beliefs, they responded to evil by resisting it at every turn. They believed that other people should do the same. Christians, and people as a whole, should share this response. Every person's soul is caught in a large universal conflict for good and evil. It is a Christian's duty to try and save as many people from the forces of evil, and to fight for good. In terms of the physical evil that we view in here, such as genocidal dictators like Adolf Hitler, they also believed that it was important for people to fight these. Since they viewed evil as an overarching force working through all of history, they believed it must be combated at every turn in whatever form it appeared. As Joseph LeConte said in A Hobbit, a Wardrobe, and a Great War, "The war against evil is the moral landscape of our mortal lives, a journey of souls degraded or redeemed, dragged into the darkness of self or led into the light of grace." These are the references. Thank you for watching.